Welcome to You Are Your Name. This is Dakin Ariel and Marlo sharing. We're discussing the cyclic law today. We'd like to go through the 1 to 9 cycle years so you can see where you are in that 9-year pattern. It would be useful for you to know your own cycle for this episode. So there's 2 ways of doing that. One is you can download our free app from the Android or Apple App Store. Then you set up an account, add in your month and date of birth, and that will give you a lot of detail on your personal cycle, the cycle month you're in, the cycle days, the cycle years, and that is really the best way to test the cycle. But I know many of you will not do that, so let's just give you the quick way. You have to add the numeric position of your month. So if you're born in January, that's a 1. If you're born in February, that's a 2. All the way right up to December, which is a 12. You have to reduce it to a single digit. So 1 plus 2 is 3. So December would be a 3. So you have to add the numeric position of your month to your date of birth, reduced to a single digit. So for instance, if you're born the 31st, 3 plus 1 is 4. Then you have to add it to the universal cycle in question. So for 2026, the universal cycle or the world cycle for 2026 is a 2. You calculate that by reducing the actual year to a single digit, and then you add 1 because you're projecting into the year. So 2026 is actually the 2027th revolution of the planet around a certain point of reference. So that would be your cycle. You add those 3 together. So just give a couple of examples. December 10th would be 3 plus 1 plus 2, which is 2026. So that person would be in a 6 year. Let's say July 5th, 2026. Again, the 2026 is the year being considered. So July is a 7 plus 5 plus 2. And so that person would be in a 5 cycle year. So that will help you when we go through this particular episode where we'll cover the summary of the years. We're just going to go through the summary that's included in the name report, which is a report on the Cavalarians.com website, explaining how your name and your birth date create a mathematical pattern to your life.
It says the 1 cycle is the starting point of a new 9-year era in your life, where new ambitions and activities should be sown and cultivated carefully over the following cycles. It's a time to make changes in your thinking and a time to work hard. Action is the keynote in this cycle. There is little to show for your efforts expended, as it is the seeding or starting time. In plant life, the 1 cycle is like the seed just being planted. So the 1 cycle, it's the time to start or initiate action. And so whether it's start a business or change a quality of or aspect of your life that you're dissatisfied with, you take action in this cycle. And the reference to the garden is when the seeds are sown, you look out and it's a flat patch of dirt. There's no growth as yet.
One thing about the 1 cycle is you have a lot of initiative. I remember in a previous 1 cycle changing cities, and often in a 1 cycle you have the urge to change jobs or maybe move to a new home. So there is a very independent quality where it can initiate action. In the 2 cycle, continue to further your ambitions, but include greater contact with people. Progress is made through sociability and discussion. It's a natural time to think about and benefit from the ideas and perspectives of others. Be a good listener. If in business, build your clientele and make yourself known. It might be a good time to consider a partnership in business. In plant growth, the 2 cycle represents germination, where the little roots from the seed draw from the nutrients from outside sources.
So you plant the garden and it requires rain. And life is people. And it's very interesting. If we live singularly, we have a certain perspective, but there's so much that could be added to our lives with the knowledge of others. And so in that 2 cycle year, we're expanding our efforts out to other people, getting to know people, looking at things from another person's perspective, just broadening our outlook on life. And it's a way of expanding those initial ideas that we started in the 1.
You find that in a 2-cycle year, you join clubs or some sort of association. You're much more easy to collaborate with. You just want other people's input. The positive quality of the 2 is diplomacy, but the negative quality is procrastination. So you can put things off and you can be swayed by other people to change your ideas. And so that's where you have to have a firm concept of what you want to accomplish in that 9-year pattern so that you can use the positive quality of the 2 rather than the negative quality.
And so then once again, it just brings up that initial point of discussing cycles, that this cycle is not dictating what you do. It's telling you about the energy that will add to the broadening of the initiation that you started in the 1 cycle. So the 3 cycle represents self-expression, getting yourself known through your own promotional efforts. This period of time brings some promising conditions, and it is time to draw upon what has already been learned from others and from your own thoughts to further the growth of ideas and activities. The 3 cycle is optimistic and promising, but can close with a disappointment if you're overly optimistic. In plant growth, the 3 cycle represents a sprouting, the first promise of growth. If you've planted a garden, you look out and it's no longer a dirt patch. There's little green shoots sticking out everywhere, and that plant is reaching up for the sunlight. So it's reaching up for additional energy than just the water and the nutrients of the soil, the photosynthesis. So now that energy of life is being added to that initial seeding, and it's like another dimension. And in this cycle, there's a lot more urge for expression and an urge for being outgoing and seeing this humor in life, reaching out. But it's the time for promoting what you have started in that 1 cycle, expanding upon it through your own efforts.
There is a waning at the latter half of the 3 cycle. There's a lot of optimism in the 3 cycle. And if you assume that that same positive activity will be there in the latter half, you'll often have a disappointment. Whenever you see a 3 cycle, the golden rule is to complete important undertakings by the midpoint. The 4 cycle represents the strengthening and testing of activities which were started in the 1 cycle. Strengthen the foundation of efforts by attending to and being aware of the technical details. It represents a time for caution, a time for hard work, and the time to systematize efforts and to exercise patience and optimism. Do not start anything new and save your financial supply. In plant growth, the 4 cycle represents root growth, the foundation for plants' future growth.
The 4 cycle, it's a time in life where you test and prove what you've started. And so life offers opportunities for you to have challenges so that you look at your distribution system or your filing system or your computer setup for the expansion ahead. And so in your personal life as well, there's challenges that show up in your health possibly. And it's just a way of nature saying you have to look after the details. This is showing up because there could be a future problem. So that 4 years is a time of steady effort and growth and progress, because as we see life's challenges and handle them, we're preparing for that action ahead.
And the tendency in the 4 years to get discouraged and throw in the towel. And really, it isn't the cycle to start anything else in a new way. So the 4 cycle, the keynote is just to put your head down and persevere and work through all the problems.
5 cycle represents the opportunity for expansion of activities, new action to be taken, a time for new experiences, education, travel, and change supported by the strong foundation built in the 4 cycle. Make necessary changes to further your ambitions. In plant growth, the 5 cycle represents that rapid expansion of the plant above the ground because the strong root system can handle it. So after you've looked after the details and the challenges in the 4 cycle, you have corrected or adjusted or seen areas that were weak. And now you have the energy and the confidence to move ahead. And that 5 cycle year in the middle of the year is another opportunity to make a change or expand or grow those ideas that were started in the 1 cycle. And it's a year again of energy and the perception of new ideas and including more aspects into your thinking regarding what you started in that 1 cycle.
It's interesting that you say confidence. The 5 cycle year will give you confidence to start a business or do something that's outside your comfort zone, because the 5 just has that dynamic quality of wanting new experiences. So it's really quite an interesting cycle. Lots of opportunity to learn. It's not accumulative, but you learn an awful lot. The 6th cycle is often the indicator of the harvest. It's a time to put your affairs in order, to prepare for the fruition, paying bills, settling accounts, taking on responsibilities, and making decisions. It's the right time to consolidate after the rapid growth of the previous 5 cycle, rearranging your affairs and settling indebtedness if necessary. In plant growth, the bud appears, another indication of the harvest to come. So the 6th cycle, we often say it's a payout year. So there's a lot of expenses. Seems every dollar coming in has to go out. And so it's, in a sense, the cycle to prepare for the fruition of the 7, 8, and 9. It can be worrying, but if you just understand the cycle, recognize that you can handle these situations and make the right decisions, and then you'll find that in the 7, 8, 9, things will be much more constructive and progressive.
So that time of decision making is an opportunity in life to add more responsibility, and it's a proving time of how much can you handle, which is an interesting quality of life, because then at the end of that year, you've made decisions, rearranged financing, and now another progressive opportunity for the fruition of what you seeded. So the 7 cycle represents a time of reflection, to step back and attach to your activities thoughtful consideration of where you are and whether you have maintained your ideals and goals. As much as possible, withdraw from activities to think into deeper things in life, and enjoy nature to find that peace and relaxation. In plant growth, the 7 cycle represents the flower stage, when pollination takes the plant to the next level of growth. It seems in this day and age that everything has to be action and activity, but after the seriousness of that 6 cycle, the decisions that had to be made, there's often a broader and deeper reason for your initiation of your original ideals. That 7 cycle allows you that space. And in a plant, it's that flower waiting for pollination. And so that pause gives you the opportunity to reflect on what you've started, think about the decisions that you've made, and think about your original ideal and goal, and add to the fruition that thoughtfulness of what you want to accomplish.
And the interesting thing about the 7 cycle, it's the opposite to the 3. It's more indefinite in the first half, but from July onwards, it becomes much more positive. Whereas in the 3, it's very positive and optimistic in the first half, but there's usually a disappointment in the latter half. And the 7 cycle really has to do with purpose. The whole pattern of 1 to 9 is relative to the purpose of mind, which is to express consciousness at its more universal levels. And so in the 7 cycle, you are tuned to the wisdom of life. So you have to spend time in nature and just absorb that peace, do some writing. And it's a time where you can come up with some really beautiful concepts that will be part of your fruition. The 8th cycle represents the harvest of efforts, the time when tangible results of thinking and efforts are forthcoming. Rewards are commensurate with your efforts. Work to bring accomplishment to a successful conclusion. In plant growth, this is the harvest. The fruit is on the tree. The fulfillment of the plant's purpose, in which the seeds for the next cycle of growth are now contained within the core.
I remember being in a cycle class, And someone said, you can't just sit back in the 8th cycle and wait for your ship to sail in. That the farmer works really hard during that harvest period of determining whether the fruit needs to be thinned, culled, or whether it's all acceptable, the shipping, all the things that have to be done to bring that profit or that fulfillment of that harvest. And so the 8 cycle year, even within that cycle, there will be opportunities that your mind, if they can see them, can take and create a bigger fruition. So it's an interesting time of keeping your mind alert and awake and working the opportunities that life brings.
Everyone's always looking forward to the 8th year because that's the fruition, the peak materialization of your ambitions. If your seeding hasn't been consistent and you restarted in the 4th cycle year, or you quit in June of a 7th cycle year, the reward will be restricted by your lack of continuity. So the 8th cycle year really needs that continuity right from the 1 right through to the 8. And that gives you the maximum fruition.
As Dakin mentioned about the cycle of man really being relative to that mental growth towards a spiritual fulfillment, that 8th cycle can also be a fruition of concept and a fruition of confidence, a fruition of having learned or seen a new picture of life and gained a new level of confidence. The 9 cycle is a time to plan for the coming new cycle of 1 to 9. Conditions in the 9 cycle are indefinite. Do not start anything new now. Rest a little more. Take that much needed time to rebuild your energies. You'll be more emotional this year, so be objective to avoid friction. In plant growth, it's a period of resting. And so we've seen the plants, once the harvest happens and the leaves drop and the seeds drop for the new cycle, it's that opportunity for the restarting. And in that 9th cycle, you will have a much broader perspective of what you could accomplish. And you'll have that joy of life and that seeing that big picture and have that enthusiasm. But you shouldn't start things in your 9th cycle. You want to write those thoughts down and build that concept and then relook at it in your 1 cycle when it is the seeding time.
That seems to be the challenge. People have so many ideas in a 9 year and they may want to start on them, but if they do, you're seeding in the wrong time to seed efforts. But it's also a very emotional year. And so invariably, that's one of the challenges of the 9, keeping an even keel. You're up and you're down and you're up and you're down. But it's really important to rebuild your energy so that you're vital and have a clear concept of your ideal to reseed in the 1 cycle.
And personal relations, it's not a time for a committed involvement, but often there can be an opportunity where someone comes into or leaves your life and you gain a new perspective of that quality of friendship and love. Or it could be a mentor, someone that really has a big impression on your life. And that again adds those seeds for the new cycle. The cycles add a quality of energy to your thinking. And so as we go through life, it is interesting that our thinking does change each day. And we might just think, oh, it's a new day and I have a new outfit. But no, it is a quality of energy that is there to be harnessed through our mind.
Now, within any particular year, there are cycle months. So your month could be quite different from the overall year. That's why it's important to have the cycle chart. The best way to know your cycle is actually to download our cycle chart from the Android or Apple store. Just search for the term cycle chart, CYCLE chart. That's free to run in a trial mode. Tune in next week for a interesting episode on how to use cycles in business. Until then, happy thoughts.
Whenever you're ready, here are 3 ways we can help you. Number 1, the Balance Name Recommendation Service. Join the thousands of others who have harmonized their names with their inner potential to improve their health, happiness, and success. Number 2, learn the principles of mental freedom. Participate in our online training program to gain the essential tools to create all the progressive changes you seek in your life. These proven truths will open up new perspectives and accelerate your attainment of health, happiness, and success. Number 3, let Kalex Solutions help you choose a balanced name for your business, because many business names are an impediment to one's overall business success.